I have absolutely no doubt that the real-life inspiration for the character of Lila Crane was Bunny Yeager. In the early 1950s, Yeager was a pinup model who gained notoriety for designing and modeling that scandalous new fashion trend, the bikini. But she soon became even more famous behind the camera as one of the world's leading pinup photographers. Her sexy photos of model Betty Page were renowned for their cheerful innocence, and even art photographers like Diane Arbus and Cindy Sherman were fans of her work. Yeager posed for Playboy 5 times, including a session photographed by Hugh Hefner himself, but was more often hired by the magazine to photograph other models. Unlike Lila Crane, Yeager was under no pressure to sacrifice her ambitions for a life of domesticity. Although she was married twice, Yeager kept up her busy career on both sides of the camera into the 1970s. She retired from pinup work when the magazines got too explicit for her taste. Now, I doubt that Bunny Yeager ever experienced the kind of exploitative publicity campaign Cleo Moore endured in promoting Overexposed. Moore missed an opportunity to star in yet another Hugo Haas film, 1956's Edge of Hell, when Columbia demanded she travel around the country making in-person appearances at select screenings of Overexposed. Billing Cleo as the Sea Girl, the studio invited avid shutterbugs to bring their cameras to the theaters where Moore was required to undrape the shape for the leering lensman. The experience so soured her on the business, she made only one more movie. For Hugo Haas, of course, 1957's Hit and Run, opposite male hottie Vince Edwards. Moore always joked that after leaving the business, she would return to Louisiana and run for governor. Instead, she married real estate tycoon Herbert Heffler. Funny how sex pots always attract money bags. And she lived the rest of her life on a sprawling estate in Beverly Hills. Unfortunately, that life turned out to be brief. Cleo Moore died in her sleep at only 43 years of age. Los Angeles-born Richard Crenna was already a familiar face on television when he appeared in Overexposed. Even though he was in his mid-20s, Crenna played gawky high school student Walter Denton in Eve Arden's popular sitcom Our Miss Brooks, which aired from 1952 to 56. He made this film just before starting work on another long-running TV series, The Real McCoys. On the big screen, Crenna is best known for his role as Colonel Sam Troutman in the first 3 Rambo films. His niche in noir is confined to 2 movies, a woe-begotten 1973 remake of Double Indemnity, in which he played the Fred McMurray role opposite Samantha Eggar, and the 1981 neo-noir Body Heat, in which he was the husband knocked off by scheming lovers Kathleen Turner and William Hurt. As for co-writer Gil Orlovitz, this script is his sole feature film credit, written during the brief time he lived in Hollywood. Orlovitz was known mainly as a poet, playwright, and short story writer. The year after Overexposed was released, he gained notoriety and a place in American poetry history when his chapbook, The Statement of Erica Keith, was purchased by undercover cops at City Lights bookstore in San Francisco, along with another controversial piece of poetry, Howl by Allen Ginsberg. Store owner and publisher Lawrence Ferlinghetti was brought up on charges of selling obscene material. In defense of Ferlinghetti and Orlovitz, San Francisco Chronicle literary editor William Hogan declared that the screenwriter of Overexposed was a sincere, growing, and dedicated literary talent, a talent provocative and stimulating enough to interest and excite admiration in serious critics and observers of literary craftsmanship of our time. For his part, Orlovitz was furious that The Tempest did nothing for his career. National attention in the obscenity scandal focused exclusively on Ginsberg's Howl, which Ferlinghetti had published, and which quickly became the poetic touchstone for the Beat generation. Orlovitz was relegated to less than a footnote, and by the late 60s he was forced to augment his serious literary output with money he made writing lesbian pulp paperbacks under the pseudonym Stacy Clubb. Despite having published decades worth of poems, stories, and plays, when Orlovitz collapsed and died on a New York street, he was treated as a John Doe and buried in a pauper's grave in the Bronx. His wife filed a missing persons report, but didn't learn of her husband's death until a month later. Now you can't say there wasn't some hardcore noir on today's Noir Alley. Join me back here next week when we'll journey to France for the 1947 film Quai d'Orfèvre, known in America as Jenny Lamour, an exceptional combination of noir, whodunit, police procedural, and backstage drama. Until then, smile and say cheesecake.